Welcome, dear soul. You've arrived at Whispering Tarot Voice, a sacred space where intuition speaks softly and the universe always listens. My name is Anna, and here I offer gentle, whispered tarot readings guided by spirit, divine guides, and higher wisdom. Together, we explore messages from the universe, soul connections, twin flame journeys, and the unseen energies surrounding your path. This channel is a place of peace, clarity, and emotional safety, where your heart can breathe, your intuition can awaken, and your soul can feel seen. Take what resonates, leave the rest behind, and trust that you have been guided here for a reason. If this resonates with you, please subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss future messages that are meant to reach you. Now, let's begin. When the Five of Wands and the Two of Swords appear together, it's like a storm trapped in a single moment, a clash of tension and choices, of battles fought in silence, and decisions that weigh heavier than expected. I feel someone in your life carrying a burden, not a small one, a weight that presses down with every breath. This person made a choice, perhaps quickly, perhaps selfishly, perhaps without fully seeing the impact. And now, the reality of that decision has come back to meet them. They are struggling internally, caught between guilt, confusion, and the desire to make things right. For many of you, this person's actions may have hurt you in ways that are subtle, invisible, or yet unspoken. It might feel like they acted without thinking, or like their focus was only on themselves. The energy here is raw, tension, regret, and a sense of, what have I done? Hanging in the air like smoke. Their heart and mind are at odds, and you are the quiet witness to it. But here is the deeper truth of the Two of Swords. It's not just about the person's struggle, it's about the moment of choice. This card asks you to look clearly at what is unfolding without being clouded by anger or hurt. It invites you to step into your own power, to see not just the mistakes, but the lessons, the consequences, and the strength you gain in navigating them. Before we dive in, if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please do so quickly so you can receive timely notifications for our upcoming videos. Let's continue. The Five of Wands tells us the battle is real, but it is also temporary. Every clash, every struggle is an opportunity to rise above. You are not trapped in their chaos. You're the observer, the one with the clarity to move with grace and awareness. Their indecision and regret may swirl around you, but your calm, your understanding, your resilience, that is your gift, your power. When I draw the Nine of Pentacles into the reading, it reveals something profound: independence, self-worth, and clarity emerging from past entanglements. What actually happened here is a separation that was inevitable. This person stepped away from the connection, perhaps without fully understanding the emotional ties they had to it, or to you. Their decision was rooted in ego, in a desire to assert themselves, but the universe had other plans. The moment they acted, a clear line was drawn, a division that could not be ignored. For you, the separation was undeniable. Unlike past fluctuations or temporary conflicts, this time it was real, concrete, and irreversible. This person underestimated the connection they shared with you, and underestimated you. They did not foresee the depth, strength, or resilience of your energy. And now, they are feeling the weight of karma, experiencing consequences they never anticipated. Life has a way of teaching lessons, and they are being confronted with the truth of what they've manifested, without even fully understanding it at first. Interestingly, they still have access to you in some form, whether through mutual friends, lingering ties, or even an almost psychic awareness of your energy. They are aware of your life. They watch, they notice, and perhaps they even feel the distance and strength in your presence. Even if you are private, even if you've moved forward silently, your energy communicates your independence and your clarity, and they cannot ignore it. Looking deeper, I sense that part of their actions were tests, childish attempts to gauge your loyalty, your reaction, or to push boundaries that they had crossed before. But this time, it failed. They could no longer manipulate the flow of your life. Your decision to step forward, to embrace your independence, became a boundary they could not breach. And this is something they never expected. They assumed you might return, or that the connection would remain pliable to their whims. But here's the truth. You're no longer entangled. The path forward is yours, luminous and unshakable. This separation was necessary, a turning point that revealed both the lessons for them and the power within you. The universe drew this line to protect your energy, your clarity, and your journey toward self-realization. This message is about awareness, karma, and empowerment. The person you are observing is now experiencing the consequences of their choices, but you are free, strong, perceptive, and moving forward with confidence. Your life is no longer tied to their uncertainty. Your energy is your own, radiant and untouchable, and that is the ultimate truth in this story. Let's look closely at the magician because this card is revealing something intense and unsettling. What this person has actually done is manifest the very thing they were most afraid of. The power of the magician is creation through thought, intention, and will. But when fear, ego, or manipulation drives that power, it can turn against the person using it. Right now, this individual is living inside the reality they unintentionally created, and it's filled with anxiety, worry, and a constant sense of unease that follows them through their daily life. The energy around them feels unstable. Their thoughts don't rest easily anymore. What may have once been mild or ignored anxiety has intensified, spilling over into their real-world experience. For some, this shows up as panic, racing thoughts, or feeling overwhelmed by their own mind. It's as if their inner world has become loud and unpredictable, and they no longer feel in control of it. The magician here suggests psychological strain, not because they are weak, but because they misused their power and now cannot undo what they set in motion. For many of you, the root of this comes back to broken trust. This person betrayed you on a deep level, and in doing so, they fractured their own sense of safety. Now they are plagued by paranoia. They question everything. They doubt people's intentions, their surroundings, and even their own thoughts. They don't know what's real anymore or who can be trusted. The mind that once believed it could manipulate outcomes now turns inward, suspicious and restless, unable to find peace. What makes this even heavier is the intention behind their actions. This didn't happen by accident. There was a deliberate choice made, a desire to hurt, to provoke, to regain control, or to pull you back into a dynamic where they felt powerful. There is a strong sense of ego here, and for some, a need to dominate emotionally. They may have believed that by causing pain, they could regain the upper hand or restore a version of the connection that benefited them. But here is where everything shifts. Once this energy was unleashed, it grew beyond their control. What began as a calculated move turned into something darker and more consuming. The magician warns that when intention is corrupted, manifestation does not obey the original plan. Instead of control, they created chaos. Instead of power, they created fear. And instead of reclaiming you, they lost themselves. Now they are left sitting with the consequences, mentally, emotionally, and energetically. The anxiety, the paranoia, the inner unrest are not random. They are reflections of the imbalance they caused. This is the universe responding, mirroring their actions back to them through their own mind. The first major change was transforming the cards from simple symbols into active forces within a living story. In the original version, the King of Wands, Judgment, the Five of Swords, and the Ten of Swords were named and explained quickly. In the rewritten version, these cards were given emotional momentum. Karma is no longer something that happens to the person. It unfolds, advances, and confronts them. By describing karma as consequence in motion and realization hitting heavy and unavoidable, the reader feels the inevitability of what is happening, rather than just understanding it intellectually. Another important shift was deepening the emotional meaning of the sword imagery. Originally, the sword was described as double-edged, but in the revised version, that image becomes psychological and karmic. The sword is no longer just an action taken against you. It becomes the mechanism of their downfall. Every intention they set in motion is shown as quietly returning to them over time. This makes the karma feel intelligent and precise, which adds emotional satisfaction and narrative depth. The concept of death and the Ten of Swords was also expanded beyond physical or dramatic loss into an internal collapse. Instead of focusing only on pain, the rewritten version emphasizes the death of their false identity, the version of themselves that believed they were powerful, superior, or in control. This makes the moment more emotional and human. It becomes less about punishment and more about reckoning, which resonates more deeply with readers because it reflects real psychological consequences rather than abstract justice. One of the most emotionally engaging changes was the clear contrast created between their fall and your rise. In the original text, your strength is mentioned, but in the new version it becomes the emotional centerpiece. Their betrayal is reframed as the catalyst for your transformation. This gives meaning to the pain and allows the reader to emotionally reinterpret past hurt as the beginning of empowerment. The rising energy around you creates hope, pride, and closure, which makes the message far more compelling. Star card appears, and immediately the energy shifts. This is healing, visibility, and quiet success all at once. It feels like you're gaining something meaningful right now: recognition, momentum, stability, or growth. Whether this shows up as followers, attention, financial improvement, a promotion, or your own business finally taking off, there is a sense that you're stepping into alignment with your purpose. You didn't force this. It arrived because you endured something that changed you. That experience marked a turning point. Something inside you decided never again. Never again would you allow someone access to you at that depth without integrity. The betrayal didn't just hurt, it awakened discernment. What makes this moment emotional is that you never expected it from this person. There was trust there, safety, perhaps even loyalty. As that realization settles in, it still stirs emotion because the connection mattered more than you may have admitted at the time. There is still an energetic thread between you and this person, and it doesn't come from desire. It comes from sensitivity. You feel deeply, and because of that, you sometimes register emotions that aren't yours. You may notice sudden heaviness, unexplained worry, or a weight passing through you that doesn't stay. You can feel it arrive and leave, which is how you know it doesn't belong to you. Your body and intuition are simply picking up what is being projected toward you. At times, this even shows up physically or emotionally in ways that feel unfamiliar, almost foreign. A mood, a sensation, a fatigue that doesn't match your circumstances. This is not weakness, it's intuition. The High Priestess here suggests that this person is pulling on your energy unconsciously. They are drawn to your light because they no longer have their own. Whatever choices they made led them to fall far, and now they are fully aware of the distance between where they are and where you stand. The image that comes through is striking. They are at the bottom, looking up while you are at the top, grounded, radiant, and strong. There is a longing in their energy, not romantic, but desperate, like someone reaching toward a source of strength they no longer possess. They believe that if they could just touch your energy, reconnect for even a moment, they might feel whole again, but your power is no longer accessible in that way. The energy here is unmistakable. When the death card clarifies itself, there is no ambiguity left. This is a final ending, the kind that reshapes everything it touches. This isn't a pause or a transformation that leads back to what once was. This is the kind of ending that closes a door permanently, because what happened crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. There was a betrayal here so deep that both of you are fully aware of it. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is misunderstood. The truth is known on both sides. The fool appears alongside this double death, and it speaks volumes. This person knows there is no way to return to the past version of the connection. The only thing left undone is confession, speaking the truth out loud, admitting what was done, and offering an apology not to restore the bond, but to release it. This is not about reconciliation. This is about closure. The cycle has already ended. The soul just hasn't finished exhaling yet. With the sun illuminating the fool, there's a sense of urgency from the universe itself. This person is being pushed toward a moment of honesty, not because you need it, but because they do. The light is forcing awareness. They are being asked to zero this out, to clear the karmic debt, to acknowledge the ending, and to let you go properly. Meanwhile, your energy has already moved on. At the core of this reading, it's clear. You no longer want to be attached in this way. You are done carrying something that has already died. What's striking is how this reading even came through. The energy around it was heavy before it ever began. There was resistance, restarts, a feeling of not wanting to open something so dense. That alone speaks to the emotional weight of this situation. This is not light karma. This is something old, unresolved, and lingering, asking to be seen so it can finally be released. Even the signs around the reading matter. Flies appearing unexpectedly, refusing to leave, arriving at the exact moment the energy opened. This is symbolic. Flies are messengers of decay, endings, and karmic residue. They show up when something is decomposing so that it can finally clear. This connection carries karmic weight, and it has reached the point where it can no longer be ignored. The universe is insisting on resolution. At the bottom of the deck, the Eight of Pentacles suggests effort, intention, and inner preparation. This person is working themselves up emotionally, trying to gather the courage to approach you, not to restart the connection, but to face what they did. There is a desire to make things right energetically, even if the relationship itself cannot be repaired, and the Lovers in reverse confirms it. This bond was broken by a choice. Something fundamental shifted, and the alignment was lost. This was not fate pulling you apart. It was an action, a decision, and now the only thing left is acknowledgement. In the original version, the karmic card, the fly, and the idea of another person are mentioned almost matter-of-factly. In the rewritten version, those same elements are elevated into symbols charged with meaning. The fly is no longer just an observation, it becomes a physical manifestation of unresolved energy, something lingering, intrusive, and impossible to ignore. This immediately draws the reader in because it suggests that the emotional weight of the situation is so dense it spills into the physical world. That sense of synchronicity creates intrigue and emotional gravity. Another reason the revised version feels so compelling is that it deepens the emotional psychology behind the other person's choices. Instead of framing their departure as simple or selfish, the explanation expands into emotional avoidance and misalignment. The idea that they were entangled elsewhere, emotionally, energetically, or situationally, adds nuance without shifting blame onto the reader. This makes the story feel real and complex rather than one-dimensional. The reader can recognize that the pain didn't come from lack of worth, but from someone else's inability to stay present and aligned. The Lovers in reverse is also transformed into a powerful emotional pivot. Rather than simply indicating a choice, it becomes a symbol of a choice made without honesty to the heart. That shift is subtle but profound. It allows the reader to understand that the separation wasn't random or necessary because of fate alone, but because the connection demanded emotional integrity that the other person could not meet at the time. By showing that your absence forced buried emotions to surface, the rewritten version reframes loss as a catalyst rather than a punishment, which is deeply healing and emotionally engaging. One of the most magnetic changes is how admiration is woven into the narrative. In the original text, your growth is acknowledged briefly. In the revised version, it becomes central to the emotional tension. Their admiration for your maturity and evolution is paired with intimidation and insecurity, which explains their behavior on a soul level. This reframing is powerful because it restores dignity to the reader. The message becomes clear. You were not left because you lacked something. You were left because you reflected something they hadn't yet grown into. That realization is emotionally liberating and deeply validating. The handling of guilt is another place where the rewritten version gains depth and attractiveness. Instead of stating that guilt exists, it shows how guilt lives inside them, quiet, heavy, and unresolved. The Page of Pentacles reversed becomes a symbol of emotional paralysis, not immaturity. Their silence is no longer confusing or hurtful. It is understood as fear of accountability. This removes emotional confusion for the reader and replaces it with clarity and self-respect. The emotional payoff comes from how the bond itself is honored. By describing the connection as closer than family, The revised version validates the depth of what was shared without romanticizing or reopening it. This balance is essential. The reader feels seen and respected for what they gave, while also being gently released from the idea that such depth must always continue. The story ends not with longing, but with understanding and emotional sovereignty. The rewritten version becomes far more powerful because it transforms what was originally a direct message of regret into a slow emotional unfolding that mirrors how loss is actually processed. In the original text, the idea that losing you is irreplaceable is stated clearly but quickly. In the transformed version, that loss is treated as something sacred and irreversible, something that doesn't hit all at once, but settles in over time. The language stretches the moment, allowing regret to feel heavy, lingering, and inescapable. This makes the emotion feel real rather than summarized. The reader doesn't just hear that the other person regrets the decision. They feel how that regret will echo through future moments, memories, and quiet realizations. Another deeply engaging change is how emotional immaturity is reframed. Instead of simply labeling the decision as young energy, the rewritten version explores what that actually means on a human level. A lack of foresight, an inability to imagine long-term consequences, and a false sense of security that you would always remain accessible. This turns the mistake into something tragically human rather than careless or cruel. It allows the reader to understand the psychology behind the regret without excusing it. That balance, understanding without justification, adds emotional depth and realism, making the message feel honest and grounded. The tarot symbolism is also transformed from explanation into lived experience. Rather than listing what the Ten of Pentacles, the Sun, and the Two of Cups represent, the rewritten version translates them into feelings of home, safety, warmth, and shared future. This shift is crucial because it allows the reader to emotionally inhabit what was lost. You are no longer just the soulmate in theory. You become the place where life felt whole, stable, and illuminated. That emotional translation makes the loss feel profound and intimate rather than abstract or symbolic. The inner turmoil shown through the King of Swords and King of Cups pairing is another area where the rewrite deepens emotional engagement. Instead of stating that the person is overwhelmed, the new version shows the conflict between mind and heart. The mind attempts to stay composed, rational, and controlled, while the heart collapses under the weight of emotion. This internal struggle adds psychological realism and dramatic tension. It mirrors how people often experience regret, not as constant chaos, but as moments of control interrupted by sudden waves of emotion they cannot suppress. The handling of anxiety and toxic behaviors is also more emotionally intelligent in the rewritten version. Rather than making a blanket statement, it acknowledges that these responses are not universal, but are present for some. This restraint makes the message feel compassionate rather than judgmental. These behaviors are framed as symptoms of emotional overload and loss rather than moral failings. That subtle shift preserves empathy while still conveying the seriousness of their internal state. Where the transformation becomes most emotionally satisfying is in the treatment of time and perspective. The rewritten version introduces the idea that this connection will be remembered differently in the future, not with panic or denial, but with love and reverence. This gives the story an arc beyond the present moment. The reader is invited to see this not just as a painful ending, but as a defining chapter in someone else's emotional growth. That future reflection adds depth and meaning, making the experience feel purposeful rather than tragic. Finally, the ending reframes your actions: silence, no contact, and the need for forgiveness as powerful catalysts rather than punishments. This is one of the most important emotional shifts. Instead of positioning the reader as someone withholding or causing pain, the rewritten version shows these boundaries as necessary forces for growth and awareness. This restores dignity and agency to the reader. The story ends not with longing or unresolved emotion, but with quiet strength and emotional sovereignty. In its fullest form, the rewritten version succeeds because it honors the pain without trapping the reader inside it. It slows the emotional rhythm, deepens the psychology, and transforms regret into understanding. The reader is left feeling validated, grounded, and complete, not because the other person suffers, but because the truth has finally settled into place. That sense of emotional resolution is what makes the explanation not just engaging, but deeply moving and unforgettable.